G'day viewers, how are you at the end of this week? Well, congratulations, we all made it through another week. Everyone who's watching, that is, I'm a little bit late with this video. I like to do my end of week videos on Friday, sometimes wait till the weekend, and based on what's happened in Australia, I was thinking I might be running out of time, possibly just a matter of time until Donald Trump nukes Australia. Why, you may ask? Because Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull made fun of him. And basically, if we've learned one thing from Trump's time in the presidency, we've learned he's a shallow, pathetic, weak, insecure prick whose single biggest weakness is being made fun of. He treats it like it's some cataclysmic crime against humanity if he's made fun of. You know the thing that happens to all politicians? Particularly all leaders, you know, like Obama put up with the whole time, constant either personal attacks or just slanderous attacks on him. Yeah, the stuff that happens to all politicians, that Trump, after calling everyone else snowflakes and everyone else, ooh, they're so delicate, can't even stand for 5 seconds of someone making fun of him. Yeah, well, Turnbull did it this week, which if you've seen how much of a toady Turnbull's been to Trump, you might be surprised by. He didn't exactly do it out in the open. There's this thing known as the Midwinter Ball, where Australian journos and politicians, like some party they have, and apparently there's this handshake agreement that anything that's said in there is a secret. You don't say it outside the halls. And I've heard variations of this in the past, but can we just pause for a moment and think about how fucking stupid that is? The concept of, oh, if we say it in here, you can't tell anyone. Really? Really? Like, if a politician, or a journo for that matter, says something absolutely vile and contemptible, you're not going to let people know what they're really like just because there was this understanding that you don't tell anyone? It's a fucking joke. And it turns out, like, someone recorded Turnbull, and it was very mild. You can probably find the video online. It was very mild. Just this thing about, you know, we have the best this, we have the best this, you know, like the standard drivel Trump says. So it was incredibly mild, but, you know, Trump has no sense of humour. Trump is a whining little bitch, and you reckon this is possibly going to lead to awkward times? You know, even before this, the phone conversation Trump and Turnbull had was notoriously bad. So I don't know what I think Turnbull was thinking this would make him cool, because the one thing nobody thinks about Turnbull anymore is that he's cool. And look, honestly, US presidents have very little to do with Australian prime ministers as a general rule, and that's generally because, well, they've got more important things to do. You know, and some very parochial people in Australia might be shocked and affronted by that, but let's look at reality. They've got more important things to do. And honestly, Turnbull could have been taking a sort of bet on two ways. Well, he might have been thinking that no one would tell anyone that he did this, or he might have been thinking, well, I'm probably done with interacting with Trump for his whole term because he just doesn't give a shit about Australia, quite clearly. And the other thing is, he might just be going, yeah, Trump is days numbered. Countdown is on for the end of Trump. Whether he resigns as he sees the walls closing in, or he actually does get prosecuted for obstruction of justice, ends up getting impeached. Maybe Turnbull was gambling on Trump is just a weird, aberrant blip on history, and I won't have to deal with him for much longer, because honestly, who sees him lasting? And on that topic, as I've said multiple times before, when that's come up, I just don't know. I refuse to predict what's going to happen. Now, speaking of how people react to Trump, I think it's important at this point that as a white person who really hates Trump, I distance myself from the gunman who opened fire on Republican lawmakers and staff in Virginia this week. Is absolutely reprehensible. There's no excuse. He does not represent the majority of people who hate and despise Trump, and is absolutely no excuse for what he's done, no justification whatsoever. No punchline there. It's really unacceptable. It's absolutely wrong. But do white people have to do that? Because when I see things that happen around the world, I kind of see all these people saying, all Muslims have to apologize for that. Oh, all the black people have to apologize for that, right? But I rarely see all white people have to apologize for, you know, the dozen mass shootings that happened just this month in the US. But, you know, it just kind of seemed fair if I said, look, you know, on paper, I really dislike Trump. This guy disliked Trump. I said extreme things about Trump. This guy did. But what he did was unequivocally unacceptable. So, you know, just in case suddenly white people are held to a standard, I thought I'd do it. And I have noticed, surprise, surprise, both conservative politicians and media outlets in the US just going on this massive tear saying, yeah, this is all the faults of the Democrats. Pay no attention to the number of actual murders that have been done by people who are clearly inspired by Trump, clearly emboldened by Trump, clearly hugely in favour of Trump. The fact that they haven't raised their voice at that, don't pay any attention to that. But yes, now this is clearly the fault of Democrats and Trump opponents. So hypocrisy knows no bounds, really. And while it has felt a little bit positive, you've seen things with both conservative and progressive politicians and public talking heads in the US saying, you know, we have to be together. This really hits home. This is personal. We feel like this is really serious. We have to do something about this. While on one level, that seems heartening, am I the only one who's more than a little bit sickened by Republicans and Republican supporters going, oh, they shot a Republican lawmaker, this is personal, oh, this is bad, we feel this really deeply. You didn't feel it when those dozens of little school kids got murdered? You didn't feel it for all the other people killed in mass shootings? That meant nothing to you? But if one of yours gets shot at, suddenly it's serious? That's disgusting. I'm going to come right out and say anybody who's acted more upset by this than other mass shootings that have actually killed people, sometimes dozens of people, they're actually fucking awful, reprehensible people. I'm disgusted. It's really fucking vile. And this whole like, don't politicize it. It's like, you've politicized it, okay? You always politicize it. Just because as like possibly not going in your favour, don't say don't politicize it. Like that awful tower fire in London, it was terrifying to watch that building go up, not least because the cheap cladding on the building that's probably responsible for how quickly and extensively the fire spread is on buildings all around the world. And there was a fire in Melbourne that fortunately people weren't killed on that scale, but the building went up, started from a very small fire, and this incredibly dangerous cheap cladding was the source of the problem. Now, some reports have said that the difference between this horrifically flammable cladding and some safer fire retardant cladding is about £2 a metre. So that building went up in smoke to save a couple of £1,000. When people saying like, don't politicise it, I don't know, a bunch of poor people burning to death to save some pricks a couple £1,000, that seems pretty fucking political to me. That's like life is politics. And just as a general thing, whenever people go, oh, don't make it political, fuck you is what I usually say. Because when you say don't make it political, you're being political. You are saying, oh, don't challenge the dominant political structure. That's a political decision. To not challenge the powers that create a situation, that's a political decision. So you're not saying don't be political, you're saying don't look for the truth. Be spineless. Don't challenge authority. Fuck that noise is what I say. This is serious. And in the aftermath, the cluelessness of some Tories and their mouthpieces in the fucking tabloid shit rags in the UK blew my mind. You may or may not have seen stories saying that Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour leader, the opposition leader, has said the people who are now homeless because of this fire, they should be housed in these rich people's mansions that are left empty around London. That was put out to try and make him sound crazy, which again, talk about missing the tone of the people at this point. There are 2 points to be noted. One, Corbyn didn't say that. He just said there are these people in desperate situations and there are all these incredibly expensive mansions that are just empty. This is an unacceptable situation. We need to do something about it. So he didn't actually say commandeer the homes. He just pointed out homeless people, empty homes. That doesn't seem fair, does it? So first, they basically lied. Second, they apparently were surprised to learn a significant majority of people think, what a fucking awesome idea. These people are totally out of touch with what the majority feel. Even after the surprising election results, it still hasn't sunk in. And one idiot Tory mouthing off, saying like, typical, he's a commie. Look at the colour of him. He's red all the way through. It's like, you fucking moron. How are you still not picking that people like him saying populist things like that? Now, you could have said basically the same thing you did about, oh, don't take private property. There's this government-owned stuff, some student housing and blah, blah, blah that's empty. We could put people there. Instead of being a total fucking prick about it, what you could have done is said, look, I understand we're all upset at the moment, but let's look at the alternatives. I think the government can provide support to these people. There's this, there's this, there's this. We don't have to talk about taking private property. We can help like this, rather than just being a complete fucking tool about it. And then when the Prime Minister, Theresa May, wouldn't even go there because she was frightened about security, the opposition leader went there and he copped some pretty heated responses from people, but he went there. The fucking Queen went there. That kind of tells you how out of touch Theresa May is when she says, it's not safe for me to go there, but the fucking Queen went there. Now, given people aren't likely to directly blame the Queen for it, and they are likely to directly blame Tories when, you know, Corbyn himself had actually put forward an act to make a basic standard of living a legal requirement, and the Tories voted it down. Over 70 of them are actual landlords, so they were voting in their own favour at the expense of ordinary people. And now we see this whole thing about, oh, we don't need regulations, you're just holding us down. You call it health and safety. It's crazy talk. What? Oh, that building burnt up before anyone could get out? Wow, how could those two things possibly be related? And it isn't as though Theresa May is the sole culprit or even really a primary one. It's just she's a figurehead. I mean, the talk is if she goes as Tory leader, the most likely replacement is Boris Johnson, who fucking would get on so well with Donald Trump. But he was Mayor of London before he was an MP. And when he was Mayor of London, and he was at a hearing for basically this very thing, talking about safety standards in buildings and why aren't people being forced to take more care of tenants in these buildings, he straight up told people to get stuffed. And the whole thing with this fire, that's not a side issue. That is a direct, straight line from treating tenants like garbage, treating poor people like garbage, pushing profit above everything else. This is how it ends up. I mean, when you see like lifelong Tories, like my mate Frankie the Skin, always voted Tory, loved Margaret Thatcher and everyone after that, when he's looking at the Tories now and going, the fuck is going on with you? He won't vote for a socialist like Corbyn because his politics are conservative, but his social conscience is not evil, it's not conservative. But when he looks at the Tories in control, and he's not alone, people who've supported the Tories their whole lives are looking and going, the fuck is going on here? We're way past time for these people to look at how much they have totally fucked it up.